marathon of life, they come in here to get refreshed, to get some water, to get fed, so that they can go out and do more ministry. Now, that's what the congregation is all about. That's why we worship on Sundays. Is we're worshiping God, and God feeds us, and then we can go forth to do ministry. Which brings us to the third point, that Jesus is sending us out as His servants. For most of us, really, except for the pastor, our ministry is in the world. You know, the ministry that we are called to, our daily, the way we share God's love in our daily work and daily tasks, is going to be out there in the world. Now, that's not to say that ministry we do here isn't important. You know, we need the different committees, we need the different things to keep the church running and functioning. But primary ministry isn't inside the church walls. It's outside the church walls. Jesus sends us out to do that ministry. So, that's the proposed mission statement we bring to you. Calvary Lutheran Church, where Jesus is at work, gathering us around His cross, equipping us as His disciples, and sending us forth as His servants. Any questions about that? Thoughts on that?
Sounds good. Maybe just be able to remember that.
Maybe not the whole thing, but they'll be able to remember the slogan, which is Calvary Lutheran Church, where Jesus is at work. They'll be able to memorize that. And over time, we can talk about how Jesus is at work and kind of hit the gathering, equipping, and sending.
I like, too, how it echoes the ELCA mission statement of God's will in our hands.
Our hands.
I love that mission statement, because that line is full. You know, and so I feel like we didn't steal that one, so I really like how...
We wouldn't want to. We want our own statement.
I think this echoes the greater church's mission statement, too, and so I like that.
Yeah, and it also, I think, it also echoes our Synod's statement to some degree. The Indiana-Kentucky Synod's mission statement is empowering, equipping, and encouraging one another to make Christ known. And so there is some of that, you know, here. But the difference I see, especially from that statement, is this is a faith statement. It's what Jesus is doing in our hands.
Didn't we just change the mission statement 2 years ago?
Changed it before I came, and you all remember how long it was.
Well, we hashed it around for quite a while.
Yeah.
I say we tried to make it short, but
About 4 sentences, if I remember right.
Something like that. Yeah, and one of the dangers with mission statements, as you all I'm sure are well aware, is they become something that's put up on the wall and you never see them again. I don't see this statement as a map. You know, my understanding with the earlier mission statement was everything that we do here had to be contained in some part of that statement. And so it's a map, if you will, a map of the territory. I don't see this so much as a map as a compass. It points us in a direction, but it's not going to tell us everything that we're doing.
It would also put on the car sticker.
It would. Or a logo. We actually there's a young lady at a friend's house who's a graphic artist type person who's making a proposed logo or two for us that would go, you know, maybe on t-shirts or a polo shirt or something like that. So, don't have that yet, so I can't propose it to you. Okay.
If that goes through, do we have to put in a bulletin every week?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would thoroughly expect that I'll begin, I may begin our announcements each morning with, welcome to worship this morning to Calvary Lutheran Church, where Jesus is at work. You know, and we week after week, we drum that in so we realize it.
Sounds like a yes.
Well, one of the keys to it, though, is it invites us to see, where do we see Jesus at work? That's, I think, the hard piece. I know it is for me. How do I, in the everyday things that go on here, in everyday people doing everyday tasks, where do we see Jesus work? That's a key piece in my mind. That's actually, I think, part of the calling of the preacher, is to point that out. Where do we see Jesus?
I was going to say, I really liked how you tied in what's happening with Hurricane Sandy with the reading today. Because just going through that long reading, I didn't make that connection myself, but I really liked how you illustrated where Jesus is at work today and something like that.
Right. Thanks.
Okay. I don't know what he's going to say, so I'm not biased. I don't know, you know.
Okay, moving forward now to the proposed 3 to 5 year goals. And the mission statement gives us a compass. What does that look like in practice for us? You know, how are we called to participate in this mission that God's calling us to do? I propose them to you, and the council proposes them to you, under the structure of gathering, equipping, and sending. With the caveat that if we're doing something that doesn't fit easily into one of those categories, maybe we should either retool it to adjust it to fit under one, or consider not doing it. I think sometimes churches do too many different things and get spread too thin instead of being focused. So that's something for us to consider down the road. All right, gathering. When you saw this morning in worship, making baptism or return to baptism the starting point of every Sunday worship service. So confession and forgiveness, Martin Luther talked about it as a return to our baptism, as a daily drowning to sin and rising again to new life. So that's why we gather around the font. That's why I brought the kids to gather around the font. Second piece of gathering, making worship services more inviting for newcomers and families with children. Now, I'm not saying here, throw out the worship service style entirely. I believe, you know, the liturgical structure that we have goes back to the very earliest days of the church. It is a treasure for us. I don't want to throw it completely out, but we can do things to make it more inviting. So, for example, with the choir, we're working on a new liturgy form from Marty Howden called Now the Feast and Celebration, which is a fabulous, more upbeat, more piano-based, but it still keeps that liturgical structure. So, making worship more inviting. Part of that is keeping the bulletins like we have. I like the fact that everything there is in the bulletin, so it's easy for newcomers to see what's going on. Third thing, intentionally invite newcomers to worship and follow up with those who come. I anticipate over the next couple of years we will start having maybe an annual Bring Your Friends and Family Sunday where we invite folks to intentionally come in, and we work with the evangelism team, heads up evangelism, to follow up with those who do come, the visitors. You know, some churches, when a visitor comes to church in the morning, that afternoon somebody comes by with a dozen cookies or a loaf of bread, homemade baked bread, to say thank you for coming to worship today. You know, those kinds of things to follow up with our visitors.
What do we do presently?
We don't. The one thing that I try to do is, if I get their address, I'll write them a card, like the birthday anniversary cards. I'll write them a card. But right now, we don't have anything. We don't have a welcome packet yet. Evangelism was working on that, and then we had the listening campaign, so we kind of held it off. But that's for evangelism folks will work on here in the next year or two. All right, invite more people to participate in leading worship and in fellowship. So, for example, right now, most all of the worship assistants come from the council, or we're former members of the council. I appreciate very much what they do, and I want them to continue, but I'd love to open that up more widely so that anybody who wants to serve as a worship assistant can do it. Similarly, with the prayers each Sunday, you may have noticed with Youth Sunday, with Rally Day, we did something a little different with the prayers. That instead of having the worship assistant just sit there and read them, different people read different prayers from within the congregation. So that's another way to get people to participate more fully in worship. You know, in worship, it's an odd thing that we do because it's not entertainment. It's, if you will, a divine drama. It's a divine play. And we are the actors in that play. Not the pastor, not just the people not just Linda on the organ and maybe the choir. All of us are actors in that play. God is the audience. God is the audience in worship. And so for us to participate more and more collectively as a body, I think would be a very good thing. Okay, that's the participation piece. And then the final one, and this struck me when I first got here to Calvary, but of course we don't have a playground. You know, for families with young kids, not having a playground says, yeah, we don't really want you here. The one problem with the playground we had before I was here, it was across the parking lot in the far corner, which is dangerous from a safety standpoint. So we're going to have to look at where we put it, thinking maybe just on this side of Stein Hall is a possibility for a playground.
So during church, the kids can go to the playground?
No, this is for after. Well, you know, if children's church goes out there sometime, okay, but I'm not going to Let's not make it a regular thing that they're playing in their worship.